welcome back to the channel. Today, we're gonna have some fun. So, hero talents, right? They were controversial. They may still be controversial, but the good news from Alpha is that I think a lot of fears are overblown. Not everybody has got lucky. We will talk about the losers, but just check out this. I mean, that's cool footage. So, I thought today, what I'm going to do is take you on a quick tour of hero talents and answer the question, did your class win the hero talents roulette? Did you get something cool, something fun, something fantasy defining, or do you have a stack of passives that you'll barely notice? Either way, we're going to go through the winners and the losers. Maybe this will inform your class decision for this expansion, and you'll see some nice shiny spell effects as well. But first, you'll see today's sponsor.
ZBiotics is the world's first bioengineered probiotic for rough post-night out mornings. It is a pre-alcohol probiotic invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. And basically, when you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct called acetaldehyde in the gut. And this byproduct, not dehydration, that is what's to blame for the rough next day. So ZBiotics produces an enzyme to break that byproduct down and assist your body in catching up. Just remember to drink the probiotic before drinking alcohol, to drink responsibly, and to get a good night's sleep for your best tomorrow. And ultimately, I decided to go ahead with them because my experience has been great. Basically, I drank ZBiotics. I had a few pints, enough that certainly, now that I'm almost 30, I would absolutely feel it the next morning. So I used ZBiotics. I shifted work forward an hour so that I would still get enough sleep, which is very important, and I was really surprised with how much I was able to get done the next day. So ultimately, I'm happy to add this as a tool to my belt, and if you're interested, go to zbiotics.com/bellular or just scan this QR code on the screen to get 15% off your first order when you use code BELLULAR at checkout, and that code also works with a subscription so you can stay prepared. And in addition to having a good experience myself, the other reason why I went with them is that they do have a 100% zero questions asked money back guarantee. So if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will just refund all of your money back without asking any questions. zbiotics.com/bellular. Use the code BELLULAR for 15% off. Thanks for the sponsorship. I think this is a really dope product. Most importantly of all, though, do drink responsibly. With that said, let's go.
So, after a few days of painstakingly cramming our brains full of tooltips and watching animations, devising a rating system, and putting it all into a spreadsheet, it's time to go. So I'll be going through the major winners, the drastic losers, in the form of a tier list because it's the modern day, and honestly, I think they're kind of useful. Now, we're mostly focusing today on class fantasy, right? The cool factor, how things feel to play with, the actual in-game strength and balance. That will change so much from Alpha to Live that there's really no point in talking about it now, anyway, but we will later. Let's start with the big one. What is the best hero talent set in the game? And honestly, it's barely even a question because it's Voidweaver Priest. We've actually had two people in our guild re-roll Shadow Priest just because of how cool this looks. For Shadow and Disc, you basically get to lean into a new cosmic void effect by opening an entropic rift, turning one of your abilities into Void Blast to extend it, and you can summon a Void Wraith. It leans into all of the cool stuff about Void. Everything looks and feels pretty damn good to use too, and it's just a perfect example of what a hero talent can be. It expands the existing class fantasy to take it to the next level, and it just looks kind of amazing. There are some gameplay concerns that need to be ironed out, like the rift duration and how that plays with Void Eruption and some other talents, and I guess my feedback for Blizzard would be that when something gets a glow up like this, that's actually when you can start to get a lapsed player to re-up their sub. Okay, we've done the best, what's the worst then? Unfortunately, at least to us, the worst is Pack Leader for Beast Mastery and Survival Hunter. The fantasy isn't different to playing a regular hunter. It doesn't really summon any new animals despite its name, and all it really does is add some passive bonuses and extra resets to Barbed Shot, Raptor Strike, and Kill Command, right? Just throws that into your rotation, which honestly to us just made it feel a bit busier. There was no pacing, just buttons flashing on top of each other. It's not terrible, but it just feels like very, very, very little compared to the amazing things that some other classes are getting. With that said, let's talk about the really good stuff. Death Knight's Rider of the Apocalypse doesn't do a huge amount for gameplay, but experientially it's amazing because you have mounted combat outdoors. You are doing quests on your mount. It is sick. And that's all while abilities are summoning in your 4 mates from Arcturus, the 4 horsemen. It's honestly just a joy to like drop a Frostworm or summon in Army of the Dead and watch the 4 most fearsome Death Knights in game just start wailing in your opponent, each in their own way. You get some cooldowns being reduced and generally just passive boosts from your horsemen, but basically here, it's the fantasy that is giving this the S rank. And that's especially when, if you're in a raid or a dungeon and therefore can't mount, what it does is it replaces Death's Advance with a better version of the Paladin's Divine Steed. Of course, maneuverability has been a bit of a long sticking point. The idea of a Death Knight is they don't move quick, but you basically can't stop them. Well, here, you can certainly move quick more, so I think people will love that. The next one then is what I was most recently playing in Alpha, and that is the Templar Paladin. If the word Templar doesn't make you reach for your great helm and your heretic bludgeoning mace, you're not a real Paladin player. But in WoW, Templars rain down hammers from the heavens. What it does is it makes Wake of Ashes and Eye of Tyr become combo attacks with Hammer of Light. Now, Hammer of Light costs 5 holy power, and it does a ton of damage, right? It looks awesome. I mean, you do your Wake of Ashes, and then immediately hammers are raining from the sky. When swung, what it does is it grants a chunk of haste, and it starts Shake the Heavens. And Shake the Heavens just has hammers fall on your enemies while you're keeping it up. It sounds cool, it looks cool, it decimates packs of mobs, and on top of that, you get another 2 extra seconds of move speed on your Divine Steed, which, yeah, is pretty awesome. Druid of the Claw, good news, it's a winner. Feral and Guardian get the best fantasy that there is, being pre-Mists of Pandaria Druid, essentially. So cats get bonus damage for a while in bear form, and bears get bonus survivability and bonus damage for a few seconds in cat form, and that lets you weave between them in combat. And that is on top of a new proc that replaces their spender with a bigger, better attack called Ravage, and a bunch of smaller, nicer changes. Essentially, you're getting proper hybrid power, but in a way that is not going to wreck the game's balance. It basically just gives you a lot of ways to pop off and essentially show your mastery over the full Druid toolkit without needing Heart of the Wild to be up. It is really cool. It basically just makes your gameplay feel way more Druidy. Warlocks then, you guys are getting a great time with Diabolist. Might not be the best name, but it plays awesome. So Destro and Demo get bonus demons everywhere, with summoning timers that you decrease by throwing out more spells. So you're summoning in a Pit Lord or a Mother Shavara, and that would give your next casts basically new animations, new icons, and new effects. So it basically does make you feel like some sort of big legendary warlock. It's pretty sweet. Finally, for our winners then, mages. You guys actually get 2 that are worth writing home about. So, Frostfire gives Frost a bunch of fire effects, and it gives Fire a bunch of frost effects. Just look at Frostfire Bolt. This thing looks amazing, and the instant proc of it that maxes out your new buffs is really fun, and just having Living Bombs and Ice Novas, Meteors, and Comet Storms just going off like mad, honestly, it just feels absolutely amazing. You do feel like a very, very powerful mage. Just the spell effects, the way that the Frost and Fire stuff looks together. Yeah, it's just experientially very strong. What's next for the mages is really cool. Now, a lot of the best hero talent trees, they're making you feel stronger, and they're pushing your class forward into feeling a bit better and a bit different. Some, though, like the Sun Fury tree, are just giving you what you've wanted for 20 years. In this case, it's Kel'Thas, one of the more iconic mages in Warcraft, where you see his, his balls that are floating around his head doing magic things, and summoning in phoenixes. And the Sun Fury mage is that exactly, and it owns. You summon in an Arcane Phoenix that fires off massive spells, it buffs the hell out of you, and that's all as you're launching spells out of your Spellfire orbs that are floating around your head. It's really cool. Arcane and Fire Mages should both get a lot of joy out of this one, actually. It makes your already pretty crispy burst windows even more crispy, and when the Phoenix goes out, it goes out in flames, giving you a massive proc for a few seconds of damage. Overall, it just comes together really well, and in both cases, I think these are nailing the fantasy. So, that's the best of the best. That's the S tier stuff, the winners. What then about the losers? Well, unfortunately, Hunters, not to bully you guys, but the Sentinel tree is also pretty lacking. It is very race-focused, with Arcane Sentinel Owls being a Night Elf thing. Bit weird for Orcs or Taurens summoning in those. I mean, if you're a Night Elf Hunter, it'll certainly fit, but I just think the fantasy isn't really applicable across everyone who can be a Hunter. And as for the gameplay, it's just a stack of passives that are based around, well, stacking up a passive and watching it explode. Now, the Lunar Storm proc looks pretty great, but that's kind of all it's got going for it. A little bit weak. Next up, we've got Monks. So you guys do get some good stuff, but sadly, Shadowpan for Windwalker and Brewmaster is, well, it's just a bit sad, really. They essentially store up charges for their Flurry Strikes proc, but that's kind of hard to notice amongst all of the different and better animations they're throwing out all the time, and the Wisdom of the Wall capstone proc doesn't really sell the fantasy of being a Shadowpan. I just think it's personally a bit disappointing, especially since characters like Taran Zu, well, they went hard, so I definitely think this one could be cooking a bit more. Next, Evoker, where the good news is that Scale Commander does go kind of hard, but it's challenging to imagine people getting excited about Flame Shaper. Playing it is pretty nice. It's a focus on the red side of devastation and preservation, with dots and hots being engulfed in flame, but it's kind of just that mechanically. The Scale Commander fantasy just feels non-existent. So it's not bad, but it's not great. I think that's just what C tier really means. And our last C tier is the Paladin's Lightsmith. Now, the idea of making weaponry forged out of the light is pretty cool, say a bit niche, and it basically works as a spell with 2 charges and a 1-minute cooldown. It cycles between Holy Bulwark and Sacred Weapon, giving you a shield or damage buff, and essentially, it's not bad, but it just doesn't really stand out as something that you would be very hyped to log in for or to level up and attain in the new expansion. I'll definitely be going Templar. Next then, there's a few other misses like Rogue's Trickster, which is a niche fantasy that asks you to use Feint in combat to get some procs. It's got an upgraded finisher that doesn't really feel upgraded, so I'm not sure about that. Next, there's the Druid's Windstalker, which is trying to mix the Resto Hots and Feral Dots together, which does seem smart in terms of in-game systems, but it just doesn't really have the vibe, the feel to come together and really be worthy of the name Hero Talent, so it does end up being a little bit of a loss for me. So, those are the winners and the losers, at least for now. There are, though, still 2 missing from Rogue, and Shaman, 1 from Priest as well, so our 4 Heavenly Hero Talent Kings right now are the Mage, the Death Knight, the Priest, and the Warlock, but those may not hold their seats when we're done, because there are other things to come out, and many changes may still happen. And I mostly say that because Stormbringer and Fatebound actually sound amazing, but then so does Archon. Okay, so that's where things are right now. And if we didn't mention your class or your spec, basically rest easy, you're probably in the middle. Today, we're just kind of taking the most interesting, visually flashy, sort of, fun to play or not fun to play things, like the biggest takeaways from the alpha. We'll be going way more in depth as time goes on. This is essentially the summary of our most notable things from like 2 weeks of essentially playing everything that we could. So there will be more in the future. But anyway, that's it from me. Let me know if you're excited for these, of course, and stay tuned because we'll have a new video up tomorrow. We're going pretty damn hard in War Within. Alright, have a great day. See you next time.